Today I'm breaking down exactly how to learn new vocab in a way that actually sticks. No endless flashcards, no memorizing useless word lists. Just practical, real-life strategies that actually work. Make sure to like this video and subscribe, and now without further ado, let's get started. First of all, learn vocab that actually matters in your life. This sounds obvious, but a lot of people waste so much time trying to learn every possible word instead of focusing on the ones that they will actually use. Someone learning a language for work or studying abroad is going to have a completely different set of priorities than someone who's just learning for travel. Someone who's learning for travel is probably going to focus on words that are casual, like ordering food or asking for directions, whereas someone who is learning for work or studying abroad is probably going to focus on words that are more advanced, that will be useful in essays, reports. Same with hobbies. For example, if you are into knitting or pottery, then those words are going to be very useful to you, whereas if you have no interest in, I don't know, rock climbing, then why learn vocab related to that? This often happens when we learn languages at school. We are presented with like endless word lists with every single word possible on that list that we just have to memorize. Even if you memorize it, then you are likely going to forget it very soon if you don't actually care about it and you don't actually use it. So I mean, if you are learning for school, then obviously you cannot really choose what you are learning. But if you are an independent learner, then I highly encourage you to choose words that are relevant to your life. This is especially helpful when you are a beginner. And even if you are more intermediate or advanced, and let's say you are using a textbook, feel free to skip a chapter that is just that you have no interest in. Let's say you have no interest in finance and there is a chapter about finance and you know that you are probably never gonna talk about that, because you can always learn those words later through exposure. Now, something I always recommend is don't learn isolated words, learn them in context. If you memorize random words with no context, then your brain has nothing to attach them to, so it's just like floating data in your brain. Let me give you an example. Let's say that you learn the word run. Just run. It means nothing on its own, but if you learn it in context, then you can say, I like to run in the morning, or I have to run to catch the bus, or don't run inside the house. And suddenly you know that run can be used for transportation, for hobbies, or to describe something that someone is not supposed to do. That way you are not just learning the word, you are learning how it's used. You can also learn new words from real content like movies, TV shows, YouTube videos, podcasts, because when you hear something and it makes you laugh or it makes you feel something, then it sticks way better. Honestly, our brains aren't meant to memorize disconnected lists. They are made to remember stories, pictures, emotions, and experiences. Now let's talk about mnemonics, because I use them constantly, especially with languages like Persian, where the words don't look like or sound like anything I already know. So a mnemonic is basically just a memory trick. It's when you connect a word with a sound, a picture, or an emotion, and then it makes it stick way better. Let me give you a real example that I used to learn this word in Persian. So in Persian, the word for apple is sib. You might think sib sounds a bit like sip, and then what can you sip? You can sip apple juice, and then boom, the word sticks and you remember it forever. And the weirder the association, the better, because as I said, our brains are made to remember stories, especially if they are weird or funny. This next one is huge. Read and listen all the time. This is honestly how I learned most of my English vocab. Sure, I learned grammar at school, but what really took me from intermediate to fluent was constant exposure to real life content. So I used to watch a lot of YouTube videos, and I guess you could say that I learned English through YouTube. And one of the best parts about this method is that you naturally start to pick up high frequency words, so words that native speakers use all the time. If you hear the same word being used over and over again, then your brain is like, okay, this must be important, let me remember that. When I started my bachelor's degree in France, there were so many words that I didn't know, but I didn't just go and study a list. I just heard them over and over again in lectures being used by my professors, and then eventually they became familiar. Same with expressions. You hear something like in terms of enough times that you start saying it yourself. I remember that by the end of my first semester, in my essays when I was taking my exams, I was using so many different words that I have never had to memorize, so many different expressions, very advanced expressions that I heard my professors use. And I was actually quite shocked at how many new words I knew. So yeah, this method works like magic. Now, hearing and seeing new vocab is one thing, but to really lock it in, you need to use it. If you can, use it immediately. You can even just say it out loud, make a sentence with it, anything. If you learn a few new words in a day, you can try to make a short story using those words. It doesn't have to make sense, but you just try to use those words to really make them stick. The point is to turn your passive vocab into active vocab. That's the ultimate goal, expanding your active vocab. Because I think you hear a lot of people say, especially at the intermediate level, they say, I can understand a lot, but I cannot say anything. That's a very common problem. I struggle with this too. Right now, I am an intermediate learner in both Spanish and Russian, and yeah, I struggle with that too, and I'm trying really hard to build my active vocab. So yeah, this method, trying to use the word immediately, really helps. My last tip is to learn words in real life moments, so when you actually need those words. I remember when I was in Paris and I met up with my friend, we were having a conversation in French, and I wanted to say that someone had curly hair, but I didn't know how to say curly, so I looked it up and I used it immediately in a sentence, and to this day, that was like, I think it was like 4 years ago, to this day, I remember who I was with, where we were, what we were talking about, and I don't know what the science is behind it, but if you use words in real life situations, then they just stick way better. The same thing happened when I was in Kyrgyzstan. I was at the local market and I wanted to ask for directions. I wanted to ask where a certain area was. So I just quickly Googled how to say where this area was. I asked the question, and to this day, I remember how to say it. I think it's almost like it sends a signal to your brain saying that, hey, this word is important, you need to remember it. Okay, that's it for today's video. I really hope you found it helpful. Let me know in the comments your favorite method to learn new vocab. Don't forget to like this video, comment and subscribe, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye.